All right, so now let's talk about being a good uke or partner. So when we're doing drilling, and drilling in jiu-jitsu is one of those things that has received all sorts of criticism, right? Uh, I think that when we're looking at moves and learning them at first, when we're new white belts and that sort of thing, there's a tendency to think that the person who's practicing the move is the only one who's learning. And that couldn't be further from the truth. So when you're the person that's in the other person's guard and they're practicing a sweep, you should be practicing all your fundamentals of being in an opponent's guard. So for instance, if Thomas here has me in guard and say he was the one that's working on a technique, there's some things, some observables that I should be keeping in my head here. So one of the mistakes that a lot of times newer people can make is they're in guard and they're like this. So actually, if you back up for just 1 second. We're bipedal animals, right? And it feels more comfortable if we're down on the ground to be up tall because that's where we are normally. And so they get into somebody's guard and their knees are close together and they're up tall like this. But if I'm in Thomas's guard like this, he can just use his legs and push one way and I fall over. So what I want to do is I want to widen my knees and I want to sit down on my ankles. Now, structurally, I created the pyramidal base, right? I have a wide base here and I'm not going to be easy to knock over. So this is essential. So when you're sparring or just when you're learning a technique, you definitely want your base to be wide and you want to be further down, not up so high. The next thing to keep in mind, if I'm in somebody's guard, is posture. You'll hear coaches screaming this at tournaments. You'll hear your coach maybe at your gym talking about posture. I want to wire in the baseline for posture is that I'm up high because I want to take away all the availability of his weapons. So if he's going to attack my throat, or if he's going to attack my lapel, or if he's going to attack my arm, I want to make those the least available to him that I can. And so I can be upright like this, even without anything else. I've made this more difficult as a proposition to attack me. You can be all the way down, so close to your partner and leaning weight on them. And here you'd have to have your hands inside the armpits, either up on top of the shoulder and driving in, or grabbing the fabric in the armpits. And here you're controlling inside position. So inside position is the chest and the stomach area. So you're creating now anatomically, it's very difficult or awkward for him to get his arms into that inside position. You're controlling the space. What you really don't want is you don't want to be at this 45. You don't want to be broken down here because now the only thing really holding you up is the muscles of your lumbar area, like your low back, weaker muscles. And if he's pulling down with his arms and legs, you're not going to be able to resist that very well. So wide base, high posture, or all the way down, but not in between here. Another factor to consider is hand position. So we want to be careful where we put our hands. We don't want to put our hands in the mat. There's very few things in jiu-jitsu that are just kind of like a hard no, like this is never going to be of benefit. I think putting your hands on the mat and guard is about as close to that as you can get, though. So we don't want our hands on the mat because he can use it to set up kimura pretty easily. So if he comes all the way over the top here, yep, that's not good for me. So I want to keep my hands on my opponent to pressure him down. There are ways to do this and a whole bunch of different schools of thought on this, but some basic ways to think about this would be one, an easy one is if we're doing gi, I can grab the belt. Sometimes the belt falls off. So putting your hands cupped here over the rib cage and pushing into the diaphragm is another. The sword and shield method, where you have one hand, usually your strong hand. If you're right-handed, it'll be your right hand. And then your back hand or your shield hand is grabbing lower or on the pants here. And you're getting this elbow on the inside. So those are all options. So one other thought here is that you want your hands to be 2 in or 2 out. And what I mean by that is if I'm in his guard and both my hands are here in the guard, that's okay. Or if I've broken his guard here and I've reached up under and I have both hands out of his guard, that's okay too. What I don't want is one hand in and you start messing around back here trying to open his guard with the other hand. Now he can shoot a triangle, he can do all sorts of things, and you're at a disadvantage. So 2 in or 2 out, but not 1 in, 1 out. Hope that's helpful, guys. Thanks.